Osa-Oviawe is a gender and education specialist whose work experience in education development and gender spans 4 continents. She is the founder of the Africa Special Interest Group, ASIG, of the Comparative and International Education Society. ASIG is a vibrant research and practice network comprising academic practitioners, policymakers, and graduate students in over 15 countries. Joan Osa-Oviawe was recently appointed to the Working Group of Global E-Learning of the World Congress of Comparative Education Societies. Joan, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Your reputation has gone very, very far, very far. You are the Edo Best Woman. Now, can you give us an overview of the reforms in the Edo education sector in the last 3 years and 9 months?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to be here. And a lot has happened in the last few years with respect to Edo Best. And so to properly encapsulate all that we've been doing, I would like to sort of provide a response in the form of a chronology. So in November 2016,
yes,
His Excellency Governor Godwin Obaseki was sworn into office. And in February 2017, the Edo State government convened a workshop on basic education, where various stakeholders were invited to give an input into the state of basic education in Edo State and profile solutions for way forward. At that event, the governor stated his vision and his commitment to reenact basic education in Edo State. And he also famously said that if he had 100 naira, he would spend 60 on basic education, because he believes strongly that basic education is the foundation for any child. And so after that initial workshop in February 2017, by October, so we went and started doing planning and trying to figure out the way forward. And then between October to December 2017,
yeah,
we carried out a census of all our public primary and secondary schools across the state, both in rural and riverine areas. That census exercise brought forth a lot of things. We discovered a lot of anomalies. We discovered teachers who had been posted into remote communities who were not going to school. In one community, in a few of the communities, school had literally stopped for over a year.
Why?
Because the teachers were not going to school in there. And nobody knew or nobody cared, and these people were still earning salary. So with the census, we discovered a lot of these things, and we said, okay, we are getting a better understanding of the nature of the problem. And the governor had also said at the time that he was not going to move forward without accurate data. He wants to make his decisions on how to reform basic education with data. So that was 2017. And then in February 2018, we conducted a diagnostics of our pupils. We did a random selection of schools, both in the 3 senatorial districts, both urban, semi-urban, and rural, to test the pupils on literacy and numeracy. The results of that diagnostic was very revealing. We find that quite a number of our pupils were below grade level. In some cases, a child in primary 4 was below the level of primary 1, excuse me. And because of the volume of the children, the number of children involved, we couldn't just say, okay, we are going to come in now and demote all of them. Okay. How do you even tell a parent that a child in primary 4, you want to demote them to primary 1 because you want to help them catch up? So that was an additional problem that we needed to solve. And then starting from March 2019, we put out a call to teachers and said, okay, if you're interested in being a part of the Edo Best training, please sign up. We made it voluntary because initially there was a lot of skepticism, a lot of unfounded fears. People were not sure what the government was trying to do, and they were worried that they were going to be victimized. And
probably
so
they will lose their jobs.
Exactly. So we just made it open if you are interested, and they signed up. And so April 2019, we trained the first set of Edo-based teachers. About 2,000, over 2,000 applied. And at the end of the training, 1,500 were adjudged to be ready to go into the classrooms. And so that began the first phase of Edo-Best. And on April 19, 2018, Governor Obaseki formally launched Edo-Best. Edo-Best...
2018 or 2019?
2018.
Okay.
April 19, 2018. So Edo-Best has 5 pillars. The first pillar is about the management of the system.
Yeah.
The system that manages basic education.
Yeah.
And this predominantly has to do with the non-teaching staff.
Yeah.
So when the governor came in 2016, one of the first things he did was to say, okay, everybody in SUBEB needed to be deployed elsewhere so that it can start afresh. Then the other part of Pillar 1 is about capacity development,
yeah,
introduction of technology,
yeah,
and so on and so forth. In Pillar 2, the focus is on teacher professional development and quality assurance. We discovered that His Excellency would often say that when the experience he had from observing another kind of education reform was that it's not enough to just focus on infrastructure. If you have a 5-star infrastructure and your teachers are not properly trained or they are not motivated, learning will not take place. And so teacher professional development is Pillar 2. Quality assurance has to do with the inspectorate division of what we do. You know, in the olden days, there were school inspectors that would come around and look at the facility, look at the teacher, go through the lesson notes of the teachers, figure out if lesson was, learning was taking place. Yeah. And over the years, all of that had sort of gone down the drain. And so there was a need to redo that. Pillar 3 deals with curriculum and learning outcomes. This is all about the pupils. Pillar 4 has to do with community engagement and private partnerships. Then the last pillar is about infrastructure and school facilities. Under infrastructure, a lot has been accomplished. To date, we are at about 324 schools, over 324 schools that have been renovated. And we're not talking about doing one block here, one block there. It's the whole school renovation. And as part of infrastructure and facilities, we're also looking at, we've introduced playgrounds. When we came on board, for example, furniture, school furniture, it was one size fits all for every child. So a child in primary 6 and that in primary 1 were using the same furniture, and you find the ones in primary 1, when they sit down, because they are very small, their feet will be dangling, hence there was no proper blood circulation, and learning was not really taking place. So now KG 1 to 3 have their own kind of furniture, pre 1 to 3 have theirs, 4, 5, and 6 have theirs. We also did the same thing with the painting. Before, it was all one color. It was not exciting, it was not vibrant, just there. And so we felt spatial literacy is equally important, because that's what you call the hidden and the known curriculum. So the hidden curriculum is what is happening around the child, that the child is taking in, but the teacher is not telling them. And so we felt that when a child comes into a classroom that is bereft of any kind of visual stimulation, yes, you are not helping that child think. You are not helping them to imagine and be creative. And so if you go to many of our schools that have been renovated under Edo-Best, you'll find that the lower level classes are very vibrant, all kinds of drawings on the wall. And of course, in the last 2 years of Edo-Best, we've distributed over 7 million textbooks and instructional materials to our schools.
Free of charge?
Yes, free of charge. And these instructional materials include, you know, charts that teachers can paste on the wall and all kinds of materials, learning materials. And so for pupils, for instance, one of the things we are doing in Edo-Best is how to teach critical thinking. So in 2019, okay, let me go back to my chronology, pardon me. So EdoBest was launched in April, and April 25th, we began with the first 200 or 300 schools that were pilots. The initial pilot of EdoBest in April 2018 was April to July 2018, was from primary 1 to primary 3. We wanted to test the program to see if it works before we expand to the rest of the class. Okay. And what we discovered when EdoBest started on a pilot phase was that in schools where we had EdoBest, P1 to 3 were learning, things were happening, the children were excited. 4, 5, and 6, nothing much was going on. I even went round many of our schools, and you get to, like, I remember one school in particular, I walked in, was like it was supposed to be third period, and there was nothing happening. The 2 teachers were in the classroom talking. And then I said, what's going on? Are you not going to teach? As soon as they cited me, they told the children, the pupils, to start reading. Bring out your reader and read.
I-service.
So learning was just about bring out your reader and read. Whether you know how to read or not, you bring out your reader and read. And then finally I said, okay, aren't you going to write something on the board? And so they brought out the marker. And, I'm a very detailed-oriented person. So I said, this was like the 4th week of school, and you are just now breaking the seal
of the marker.
So which means you have not been teaching. This is the 4th week. So I raised that observation, and they didn't have any meaningful thing to tell me in return. So we realized that we cannot do this pilot forever, because we needed to scale very quickly. Plus the parents, communities were writing the governor that they want EdoBest in their schools. They want EdoBest for the older classes. And so by September, the new academic year, 2018, we now expanded to an additional 500 schools. And by October 2018, we celebrated the training of 7,000 teachers. Okay. So a lot was going on really quickly. So by 2019, January, when the second term started, we had expanded to over 800 of our schools. As of today, we have EdoBest in all but 192 schools. And the plan was, if not for the COVID-19, all our primary schools would have been in EdoBest by now. And we would have also expanded to GSS 1.
What is the figure? How many schools do we have?
In Edo State right now, we have about 1,036 primary schools. And of that 136 primary schools, we have over almost 900
that you have covered.
That's in EdoBest.
Okay.
And all our teachers have been trained in EdoBest, except for the teachers in these 192 schools. And so we are hopeful that by September, when things go back post-COVID, hopefully, that we'll train the remainder of these teachers.
Okay.
In terms of curriculum, what we do in EdoBest, because there's a lot of misconception out there being orchestrated by enemies of progress. Oftentimes, I said earlier that we had to do a diagnostics, and our kids were really far behind. So in order to catch them up, school resumes at 7:30 and closes 7:45 and closes at 1:30. And because the kids are so far behind, you have to do remediation before you now teach them what they're supposed to learn for that grade level. A child in primary 4 that does not know how to read and write, what business do we have teaching something else? It's that we are wasting their time, and we are also wasting the time of the teacher. And so we had to so we then decided that we're going to stop the clock, literally, and do what we call teaching at the right level. Teaching at the right level is, there is a point where learning can occur. And that point is when you are teaching the learner at the level where they understand, that they have confidence and they are able to absorb the learning. But if a child is in primary 6, they cannot read, they cannot write, you are teaching them primary 6 level arithmetic or integrated science, the child is not, they are cognitively because they don't understand what you are saying, and so there's no learning taking place. So with teaching at the right level, we decided to focus on 4 critical areas: literacy, numeracy, writing, and critical thinking. How do we teach critical thinking now in our schools? The typical reading comprehension exercise would be something like Joy is going to the market. On the way she met John. Question: where is Joy going to? And the pupil will answer to the market.
Yeah.
But in Edo-Best, we try as much as possible to even use indigenous names. So where possible, we customize the content of the textbooks. So we say, Omozele is going to the market. On the way, she ran into Imokwede.
Okay.
And then the question is, why is Omozele going to the market? So the reading exercise did not state why she was going to the market,
exactly.
just that she was going to the market. So as a pupil, you are now forced to think. So if you have 20, 30, 40 children in a classroom, you are literally going to get a wide variety of responses of why she is going to the market. So that's what we do in Edo-Best. And then we also do things where we connect the reading of the day. So if the comprehension exercise is about civic responsibility in English, in social studies, that day the topic would also be related to civic responsibility. So something like, Mr. Otasowe has a son that is very stubborn. He broke into a bank and he was arrested, and then you ask them questions. So we try to do cross-curricular teaching so that the children are really absorbing. So we don't encourage rote memorization, because that's one of the problems of our education system.
Okay.
In the workplace, for instance, a lot of employers will even tell you, some have said, and I've also had similar experience, that some of the staff who tend not to do very well are those who came in with a first class or second class upper, because quite a number of them have textbook knowledge. So when it comes to using initiative, thinking outside the box, or human relations, then they tend to struggle, because our education system is about reading the textbook and regurgitating. We never ask the why. Yeah. So this is what we do in terms of curriculum. In terms of other things that we are doing for the pupils, when we came in, there were no records. A child, it was like our school system was like a Bermuda Triangle of sorts. The children come in and they graduate, nobody knows. You get that certificate at the end, and that certificate, everybody is 12 years old, whether you are actually 14 or 16.
Okay, it's all right. Well, we are speaking with Dr. Joan Osa-Oviawe, the Edo-Best woman. When we come back, we are going to be talking about how Edo-Best is being funded. Stay with us.
Listen to this. On the 5th of October 2019, thousands of teachers gathered at the Eagle Square, Abuja, to honor Governor Godwin Obaseki as their best performing governor. This is because Governor Obaseki's far-reaching redemptive measures have created the right environment with the introduction of Edo Basic Education Sector Transformation, Edo-Best program. Under the Edo-Best program, 11,300 teachers have been trained in ICT. 11,300 have been distributed, 891 schools have been covered, 269,000 pupils are benefiting from Edo-Best. Liberia, Rwanda, Sierra Leone have visited to adopt the model, while states in Nigeria, including Lagos, have also visited and are said to adopt the model. Pupils learn 3 times more of what they used to learn. Edo teachers are the 3rd group of workers in the world to work with Facebook Workspace. 1,200,000 instructional materials have been distributed, and there is community ownership of schools. Governor Obaseki is changing the people's socio-economic destinies with robust basic education in Edo State.
Welcome back. Now, Joan, you see, I was so enthralled with everything that you were saying. I didn't want to break in, but we actually needed to take that break. Now, the question is, what are the most significant changes that have received the most input from members of the public, particularly parents and guardians?
Oh, fantastic. When I mentioned earlier that we had to stop the clock to do what we call teaching at the right level.
Yes.
Before we did that, I believe it was March 2019, we had a stakeholders forum of parents, members of the school-based management committee, representative of the teachers union, private school proprietors, publishers. Yeah. So the key stakeholders in the basic education ecosystem,
yes.
They came, we explained to them what we were trying to do, what the data was showing us, and why we needed to do what we were going to do. And we answered whatever questions the stakeholders had, and we moved on from there. So at every given point in time, before we launch any major initiative, we often call a stakeholders meeting. Okay. We've had town hall meetings with parents, SBMC members, to get their feedback about how EduBest is impacting their children. Okay. And there are tons and tons of testimonials from parents who talk about how even their children's behavior at home is now, their children have changed. Because in our schools now, we have what we call character board. When we launched EduBest, one of the very first things we did was abolishment of corporal punishment. And why did we do that? Before we began the education reform, I visited schools, and I will never forget one school I went to in Benin City. A child came in at about 9 a.m. As soon as she was entering the gate, the school gate, the teacher, the HM or whoever, just brought out a long cane and started flogging them all over their body. They didn't even bother to ask, why did you come late? They just started flogging them. And then when I asked, I was told that was the rule, you get flogged. And I said, even children in kindergarten, like a 3-year-old does not have a say when, he or she gets to be dropped off at school. So why do you punish them? So we had to educate our teachers, and they saw reason with us that at that level, you shouldn't be flogging them. First of all, find out why they came to school late. And we also realized that a good number of children in our public schools were house helps. So if a house help does not have the power or temerity to leave home and go to school to get to school on time without the approval of whoever they're staying with.
Yes.
So then we also now introduce character board, because when we removed corporal punishment, we trained our teachers on other classroom management techniques that will bring out the best in children. So instead of focusing on the ones doing bad things, focus on the ones doing good things. Focus on the ones modeling good behavior. So we introduced the character board. Character board, now every child comes to school early on their own. They are struggling to come to school early because they want their name on the character board. During class section, they want to answer questions. The other thing was, if a child did not get a question right, don't call them names. Don't say, you fool, you dundee. No. Tell them incorrect. Who can help? And then somebody else will answer, correct. And then we introduce the phrase that we use now, good job you. You know, many of us use it at home now.
Good job you.
Good job me. So when a child does something well in class, say, good job you, good job me. And then also we introduce what we call energizers, songs, cheers. So we noticed that typically for children, after coming into class, after recess or break or long break, they come in, they're a little bit more sluggish because they've been playing, they are maybe tired and whatever. At that point, the teacher will launch into an energizer. So you would say, everybody stand up. You know, at my signal, shake, shake the mango tree, man. So there are different songs like that to wake them up, to get them to reset the clock for them. And then when a child does well, they do the cheers. Like, okay, everybody at my signal, let's give John the best chair. And everybody will stand up, John will sit down, and they'll say, you are BEST, put you to test, you are the best. So every child wants to be acknowledged and recognized.
As the best.
Even when we have open day, it was part of the things we introduced under SUBEB. When parents will come early and say they want their names on the character board too, because their children have told them about the character board, and so they wanted to be part of that. Our very first open day in July 2018, in the rural areas, parents wore agbada to school to meet their children's teacher for the first time. We had teachers who wore suit on that day to school. We had teachers who brought tablecloth from home to cover their dilapidated teacher's table. For the first time, you saw different people feeling a sense of ownership. So we did the academics. We said, okay, we are going to turn our attention to co-curricular activities. We started, we made inter-house sport mandatory beginning in 2019, this academic section. Do you know we had schools that were founded in 1920, in the 1940s, in the 1950s, that were doing inter-house sports for the very first time?
No.
Unfortunately, I don't have I can send it to you afterwards, the names of the school. For the very first time since they were founded. We brought back excursion, the same thing. Many children, we were taking children to TV station. How did the excursion thing start? About a year and a half ago, I got a message on WhatsApp from a teacher. She wrote to tell me that on that day, she was during a civic class. The topic of discussion was money, different ways of saving money. And so she went through the different ways that you can save money. And the other example was you can also save money in a bank. She said when she mentioned bank, she noticed that the kids all had blank faces, blank stares. And this is a school in the urban area. In Benin City, yeah, it's not in some village somewhere. And so she paused, she said she asked the pupils, how many of you have been to a bank? None of them.
Okay.
And so she wrote to me and said she really thinks that we need to start doing excursions. I said, absolutely, I agree with you. And so we started. You know, schools have taken their kids to police station, to the hospital, to TV station. And of course, COVID-19 happened.
Have they been to the bank?
Yes.
Good.
Oh, and they are going to go to more places, universities, even the government house, everywhere. Like, these are children that should be treated for who they are. They are very important. So we had, again, COVID-19 came in this year, and we had to abruptly end the term March 22nd. When we did that, we came up with SUBEB at home, the online learning alternative to offline schooling.
Now, let's talk about the recruitment of teachers. How was it done in the last 3.5 years?
So that's one thing that people, naysayers and critics want to harp on, that this administration has not hired teachers, so on and so forth. So all the talk about commitment to education is a farce, I want to say that in the last, SUBEB, like I mentioned, has been around 2 years now, just a little over 2 years. We were 2 years on April 19th this year. Okay. And so in that period, a lot has happened. In fact, I just gave you a scratch, a surface level of what we've done. A lot has happened. First, before you start hiring teachers, you need to even know how many teachers you are paying. How many are in your payroll? I mean, this seems so straightforward, but I can tell you it's not straightforward. Every day you find people, oh, somebody has not been teaching for over 2 years, but they are still on payroll.
What about, the claims that communities were not, employing auxiliary teachers to augment the shortage in some schools?
Communities have always employed community teachers, even before Governor Obaseki came around. Okay. One of the things we discovered, like I said, when we did our census, was there was a disproportionate number of teachers that were skewed to the urban centers across the state. And in those places, you had excess teachers. In some schools, in one school, we had over 30 excess teachers that we had to deploy elsewhere. So we had to do a, what do you call it, a redistribution of our teachers, and then we started transferring. Even that process was slowed down by lots of interventions. And the governor, to his credit, stood his ground and said, because everybody is connected to somebody, and nobody wants to go to the rural area. And the governor said, we cannot be paying, the wage bill for primary school teachers alone is almost 2 billion naira every month. B, not M. Every month. So if you are paying that kind of amount, investment, you need to see a return. And so the government issued a press release to the public that requests for transfer of teachers cannot be accommodated because the volume was too much. But the only exceptions would be on medical and other compelling grounds. So that's one. In the interim also, it should be noted that in the last few years, we have had up to or more than 5,000 empowered teachers in our schools that the federal government was paying. So when people say you did not go and hire teachers, do you just jump and start hiring blindly? Even at the secondary level, it's even more critical. When SUBEB just recently took over JSS, because junior secondary school is part of the basic education system. At the JSS level, what we are doing now, we've just completed verification of our teachers in the system. Now we are going school by school, class by class. Which teacher is teaching primary JSS 1? What is our qualification? In this school, what are the subject level vacancies we have? Because what typically happens when people don't plan is, you say you want to hire secondary school teachers, and then you hire people, and then maybe majority of them have a degree in adult education. There's nothing wrong in adult education, but you need to know how many math teachers do you need to hire, how many physics and chemistry do you need to hire. And to get all of this right, it takes a little bit of time. So that's what we've been doing as part of the cleaning up of the system in the last couple of years, to understand, to place everybody where they are and ensure that we know exactly the number of teachers we have in our system. So we've done that now. We are now ready to start hiring. And for us at the primary level, the other issue we needed to solve in the long term was this question about rural teachers. Most people don't want to go to the rural areas. And you cannot just say, oh, to hell with them. Because if somebody is not happy, if the morale is not there, you are not going to get the best from them, particularly teachers. Yes. And so what we are looking to look at different models. And one of such that we are considering now is that for those rural communities where the indigents, where there are qualified indigents, we will hire them. So you stay in your community and you teach there. So we don't have to deal with, oh, my family is in Benin and you have sent me to some faraway place in Ikakumo or the end of Akoko Edo, and then I have to be commuting every weekend. I got into an accident, my waist is broken, all kinds of stories. Okay. And these are legitimate. So Mr. Governor, because of the kind of person he is all about putting human face to governance, said, we cannot continue to pretend as if we are not, some of our teachers are not in environments that are not conducive for family work balance. And that's what, so now we are ready to hire, and I believe that when we do recruit these teachers, Edo State children are going to get the best.
Thank you very much. Now, the Obaseki scheme is quite expensive. Who is funding it?
It is expensive, but it's also not expensive. Obaseki is 100% funded